Welcome to the Hypnosis NGH Podcast. I'm Eric Damon from the National Guild of Hypnotists. This podcast series offers a fun and serious look at hypnosis and offers various ideas, discuss case studies, along with NGH educational opportunities. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Hypnosis NGH Podcast. I'm Eric Damon from the National Guild of Hypnotists, and I have the pleasure to be joined by three wonderful hypnotists and part of the NGH. We're actually recording from the NGH convention in Marlborough, Massachusetts, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves because they can probably do much better job at it than I can. Starting with Tommy.
Thank you, Eric. I'm Tommy V from Valley Hypnosis. My practice is in Methuen, Massachusetts, and I've been in the business for probably around 30 years now.
Wow, that makes you old.
Yeah,
Seasoned. That's what. Carol?
Okay, so I'm old too. I've been practicing hypnosis for 30 years. My name is Carol Denicker, I should mention. And I have a practice called North Shore Hypnosis, and I also have a school where I teach the hypnosis certification training, NGH, of course, on Long Island, and I'm very happy to be here.
Well, we're glad you joined us.
Okay.
Dr. Will?
I'm Will Horton, Dr. Will Horton. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and hypnotist. I've been a hypnotist, and that's my primary modality since the mid 1980s. So I've been doing it for a while. And I'm currently in Florida. I live in Venice, Florida.
Then why do we call you Texas all the time?
Because I wear the cowboy hat. Yes, they do have horses.
Okay, well, it just fit the whole thing. So we're doing a roundtable discussion. We've got a topic that we're all going to just chit chat about and give some insights, get your insight on it, and share it with everyone. The topic is what works best for you, and we're talking you as hypnotists, private hypnosis sessions, group sessions, virtual sessions. Why would you say that works for you, and where do you find the most success from? And so, anyone wants to jump in and tell me what works for them or what you see, even if you see, how things will evolve even from here, and your thoughts about that.
This is Tommy V. I think we are definitely evolving to remote sessions. I know many associates that have closed their physical offices, and that's all that they do. I'm just barely getting into remote. I still have an office. I've done a few remote sessions with people in Florida or other places, and that works well. And come to think of it, when my dad started the office for reinforcement for smokers, we always offered a telephone reinforcement. If you're at home, you're thinking about smoking, call us up. So we've been doing remote for years, just over the phone.
Right.
But it is going that way for sure. And my office works for me for a couple of reasons. Some people expect to come in live. And I think it is powerful to either do one session live and then go remote. The other reason why it works for me is my rent is very cheap. It's less than $400 a month. So it works for me right now. If it was $800-900, I might be doing something different. So
now, let me tag onto that for a second.
Yeah.
Would you find that there might be a client that you feels comfortable, at least the initial or maybe the first couple of sessions are face-to-face?
Yeah.
And then they're more comfortable to do a virtual session?
I think some people are. But I think we're going towards virtual. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, this
Carol?
is Carol. And so I suppose there would have been a time, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, I would think teaching online would be, very
Like a taboo?
next to
You don't do that?
impossible. Yeah. And seeing clients, I couldn't have imagined, although we used to do telephone hypnosis on rare occasion. But, people's expectations are changing. I do agree that it's useful to have the first 1 or 2 in person if you can. I think it's important to get that energy connection between you and establish rapport in person if you can. but sometimes a person will want to see me and they're not located close enough to make it possible to drive to the office. So I'm doing the training online. I'm doing seeing clients online as well. And it's interesting because up until the advent of COVID, I was teaching. I had a licensed school. I still do, and I had my quarters from which I was authorized to teach. And then when COVID happened, we were commanded to go online if the courses would work well online. And they were responsible for that decision. And then when COVID was over, I saw how well the training went online. And I actually got them to license me to do online certification training. So I'm very proud of that. And it's working very well. And so, yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
Oh, that's good.
All right. Dr. Will, and 90% of what I do is online. I started doing online in 2012 when it was GoToMeeting before they had Zoom and all this other stuff. And because I've been blessed to be able to travel and teach, I would have people that would want to do something. And, I live in Florida, they're in New York or wherever they happen to be. So that's why I started doing it. And so when, as Carol just said, when COVID hit and it changed the whole dynamic of it, I'd already been doing online. So, I was lucky enough. I showed people how to do it and all this and the different types. And, as hypno coaches or as consulting hypnotists, we don't fall under the medical umbrella where you got to have a HIPAA compliant online platform. Like if I was going to practice clinical psych.
Right.
So it was fun. And I think what I see people talking about, like here at the conference and people I train, is that once you go virtual, you're not bound by being in Massachusetts or New York or Florida or Chicago. You get people literally from all over the world. So there's an advantage to that. And I think it's just that learning curve of taking things, as Carol said, of teaching online. Mm-hmm. It's just a learning curve. And I think as Tommy said too, it's the wave of the future. Mm-hmm. I know when I get people under the age of like 35 that want a session, they don't want to come in live. It's like even if they're local, they'll go, can we do this online? So, and again, because of COVID, people got used to it. So there's no fear of it. So I mostly online.
And virtual or online has been successful for you?
Yes. Yeah. There's
all of you?
I miss the hands-on. That's why a couple times a year I do something live here at this conference and a few other places. And I think eventually, and I'd like to hear from everybody else, I think we're going to see that morph out where there was a dip in conferences because of COVID. I think it's going to come back, especially to get the hands-on training with people.
Right. I know. I think you're right on that, because there's a lot of you see it here at the NGH conferences all the time. There's people in the corner and networking, and all of that is extremely important, as you guys can talk to if you want to, is that you need to be able to rely on each other and constantly train to be a better hypnotist. And that's what happens during this conference, that everybody's training and updating things and learning new things. So all of that is very important.
Absolutely. I personally miss the hugs with my online classes. I don't usually attack my clients the same way I do my colleagues and my students. They all have to get a hug on the way out, and I miss that personal the contact. It's
rapport. Well, you get the rapport online, but
you can.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's just kind of nice to be in person, but it works very well. And after just a short time, it seems like you're in person. If you have a substantial size screen and, every time one of your students speaks or your client speaks, you see them kind of almost full size. Right. I wouldn't want to do it on a cell phone. And that's missing something. And I know some people do. And I don't allow my students to join the class on a cell phone. It's just too small a screen because I share slides. So,
and just think about it, when you go virtual, you're, instead of attracting clients from an hour radius from where your office is, now you've got the world.
Right.
It's huge.
So I can tell you that the National Guild of Hypnotists has been working on developing safeguards, if you will, I guess that's the word we'll use, for virtual training, because, you know, you want to make sure that the training stays where it's supposed to be at the level it's supposed to be, and that it doesn't slack off from just because you're not in person.
Mhm.
And there's a few things that the National Guild of Hypnotists is working on so that we can audit these things, to make sure that exactly like Scott Giles was talking about, you know, our par concept, you know, keeping on par with things and being responsible and ethics and all of that, which is important. And, you know, it's got to carry on with online work as well.
Right. One of the things I find to be a great improvement over doing training in person is the breakout rooms, let's say in a Zoom meeting where, you know, everyone will pair off to practice a technique or an induction or whatever. And I can hop from breakout room to breakout room. It was a bit more of a challenge when you're teaching in person. You have to get them far enough away from each other so that they're not hearing each other's session.
Right.
And so you still have to get around and sort of, supervise what's going on. I found that to be a lot easier online, and I feel I get more attention that way.
And on the therapy side online, not therapy, on the coaching side online, there was some research that said in some ways online is better for long-term affect change because you're in your home, so you're comfortable. So
Right.
I can use my clinical specialty as addictions. You know, somebody can come to an addiction center and do great for 28 days. They get home 3 days later, they're back drinking or drugging.
Mhm.
And it's because nothing changed at home. When you're working at people at home, you get the triggers are right there, and you could,
Right. They're in the
yeah,
atmosphere.
and they're more
everything.
comfortable
Yep.
to drop the thing. So it's and I know from the other, I'm a licensed professional, so the psych community is having the same issues with what we're having. How do you regulate it? How do you keep it so you're doing the proper thing at the proper time?
Yeah, and I regulate it in the sense of making sure that ethically it's done correctly and it's not a fly by night type of thing. I mean, all of our members, as you all know, because you talk to them every day, at the National Guild are professionals and they work hard to be professionals. And when something evolves like this onto online or, type of to work, then we just have to make sure we tag along and make sure that if you're part of the guild, you're still at that level that you need to be.
Mhm. Maybe we can chat a little bit about what happens when the client first calls, thinking that, it's an office. I'm going to come in and see you, because I picked up a couple things. I don't remember where I heard this from, but the hypnotist says, well, once you close your eyes, it doesn't matter whether you're sitting at home or whether you're in my office. And the change happens not in my office, it happens in your mind. So that's a nice approach. I don't know what
Absolutely.
you say, Carol and Will, but some people are calling up, hi, can I come in for an appointment? And you say, well, we're doing it online now. Oh, really? Does it work well? What happens if we get disconnected and all that stuff?
Right.
Well, that is a pain when that happens. On rare occasion, if something like that does happen. But in my case, I see I give the client the choice. They can come into the office if
Mhm.
they're able, if they prefer, or they can do it online, or we can do a combination of both.
Okay.
But I think it works very well online because they're so comfortable. In fact, recently I had a therapist come to see me, and she admitted right away, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, do this. And I said, oh, you'll be fine, And well, she wasn't one bit fine. She came because she felt she was eating too much. She ate very healthfully. She wasn't overweight, but she still felt she was eating too much. So went through a very, relaxing induction to keep her very calm. And midway, her eyes popped open. And she said, yep, I'm right. I can't do this. I got to go. So I said, well, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to create a recording for you, and I'm going to send that to you. And then we'll see what happens. So she listens to an audio recording, and she's recently called to schedule a second appointment,
Oh, there you go.
and she wants it to be on Zoom now.
Okay.
At first she was a little skeptical of that, but for her, she just was so anxious about closing her eyes in front of another human being.
Mhm.
So she had other issues going on aside from the eating a little bit too much.
Well, as usual, I'm the outlier. I only do online. I don't have physical practice anymore. If I get someone local that really wants to be, seen in person, I do. I have a friend, he has a medical practice. He's a family practitioner. I can use his space. So I always tell the people, yeah, we could do it. I can only do it on like this either Wednesday or Friday because that's the day he's at
Playing golf.
The hospital, whatever. I said, but instead of what the usual fee is, it's like $225 instead of $150 because
Mhm.
I got that always like changes the conversation. But the thing like was said, one of the things I've seen change because of COVID was before COVID, living in Florida, an older population. I won't say elderly, but older
Seasoned.
population. They were like, I would
we
mention
all-
Zoom or online. Nope.
Mhm.
But now I'm getting some very tech savvy, people in their 70s because to order food, to play with your so it's that dynamic's changing. And like was said, the thing I do and people like it, I say, okay, now we're good, Eric, we're doing let's start the session. But all that we talk about before I do the formal hypnosis or the NLP technique I'm going to do, I'm not recording that. So
Right.
that, I'll record the actual hypnosis session or the actual NLP technique and send that to you because unless you want, I can record the whole thing. I don't care.
You send them
Right.
the audio?
I sent him the audio. I said, you could turn your camera off. It's fine with me because, but I prefer you leave the camera on so I can watch you. So in case you fall out of the chair, which has never happened. That's a joke. But, but it is good because you get the more you do this, the more things happen. I was in the middle of a session with a guy and suddenly the phone rings, the dog starts barking and, it's in the middle of the session and he goes, I got to go take care. I'm like, it's okay. We can,
Come back.
and
And you deal with the situation as
yeah,
it
just
comes,
like,
right?
yeah, I still say some of the best hypnosis sessions I ever did was when I had my physical office and the room next door was being rehabbed so you could hear jackhammers. So I turned it into a story about rehabbing your mind. We're going to rip out the old walls, put in new walls. So I said, that's fine, so, but it also, he was a skeptical client and it turned into a great client because it proved to him that if you're always in control, when your dog started barking like a banshee, he needed to go see what it was.
Right.
So yeah, but I like it, and every once in a while I get somebody that'll say, nope, I want it online or not online. I want it in person. And he's since closed his practice, but there was a local guild guy that was in Venice and then another one in Sarasota. I say, well, I'll give you their number because I don't have an office. What can I tell
Right.
you? Yeah.
Well, when you look at the big picture, all of us are really still in the growing phase of what's happening online. And it really was, thrust into high gear because of COVID, meaning that, yes, Grubhub was still around before COVID, but you didn't use it. Maybe you did. It was occasional use. Now everybody uses it. So it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of really pushed this, including, our profession into hyper mode in the sense of how can we do what we do online as well. Now, what about group sessions? Is that possible online? Is it successful online?
Well, I'll start that one. When I do a weekly call with a group, and usually we do a session at the end of it. And like we said, if you're comfortable with Zoom, you put the gallery view up, you can see everyone.
Yep.
And when I get ready to do it, people will opt out to say, I really can't do it right now. I'm at work. That'll happen a lot because people will jump on and they'll do that. And I say, that's fine. Or, there's a lot going on. So I think a lot of that is trust your client to self-select whether they can do it or not, and we still, a couple of people jump on my call, they're driving, so I'm like, you may not want to do the session part while you're driving,
We'd like you relaxed,
Yeah.
but not that relaxed.
but I'm a Florida guy. We make fun of Ohio drivers. But yeah, so yeah, I like doing group sessions online. And I know a guy that does stop smoking seminars. He still does the stop smoking seminars. And he'll do them occasionally live, but the last time I talked to him, about 70% is virtual. still does the snail mail or the, what are those called? The packets, group, like a Groupon
Oh,
thing
Groupon type
and all
stuff.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Valpak.
All right,
I'm
right.
dating myself here.
Mhm.
Valpak, and which I used to do in Groupon. And he goes, no, they'll come online and you'll have, the groups are a little smaller, but he does
But it's
it.
been
He's
successful
been
for you.
successful. Yeah.
Think about what virtual does to your bottom line. You have no rent.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's huge for most people.
Right.
Especially if you're in a market where your rent, where I'm at, the rent for an office space is probably $2,000 for a
Right.
3-room office.
Right.
So
If you can do the same amount of clients without that nut to crack every month, it's pretty good.
That's the benefit.
It is.
Right. And the whole idea is obviously either be group sessions or singles. If it's successful, you're gonna keep doing it and developing it.
And when it comes to groups, and with every class I do, there's going to be a period of time where first I'll talk about the concept or, of the technique I'm going to teach. Then I'll demonstrate it. And then I want them to break into pairs and practice it. And so I have that kind of group experience, but I've not done any kind of, I've done groups in person but I haven't done groups.
Hypnosis.
Yeah, like a
sessions.
group, quit smoking
Yeah,
session or something like
interesting.
that. And I'm sure it works as well as in person, but I think the group experience never worked quite as well as, one-on-one,
Right.
right?
No. Yeah. One-on-one's
has to be
more
more-
powerful.
Yeah, it has to be so generic if it's going to be a
yeah,
group.
you can customize it. When I used
Yeah.
to do those stop smoking.
Mhm.
Well, stage hypnosis, that's a group basically on the stage.
Yeah. There have been some stage hypnotists that during COVID did a show online. I didn't see any of it. I don't know how it worked.
Yeah, I don't know if you
Wow.
can do it.
I'm
online.
not sure.
I
Wow.
mean, last night you killed it in a
Thank
good
you.
sense. I mean,
Thanks.
Great job.
Thanks. That
Lot
was
of
a
fun.
lot of fun. We're at the convention here live and it's a blast.
Oh, yeah.
exactly. There were hypnotists being hypnotized. And
The easiest group to hypnotize, bunch of hypnotists. Hello.
it was a great stage
Well,
show and
yeah.
everyone was in person.
Yeah, and an
Yeah.
unsolicited plug, why people want to come to conference, the NGH conference is what you said about networking. How I
Right.
got people ask me, how do I grow my career? I said, well, show up and meet the people. And
Mhm.
what really got me going, I was at a different conference, the Mid-America, and George B.N. calls me over and goes, I want you to meet this guy. And I'm like, who is he? And he goes, we just call him Doc. And so I sat down. That's how I met, Dr. Damon and got to interact. And he goes, yeah, you've been coming to the conference. Why don't you teach more?
And
I'm
now
like,
you've been here for
Yeah. Yeah.
years and years and
Yeah.
years, right?
Mhm.
That's great. That's great. That's what we like to hear. I appreciate the fact that you all sat down and let me pick your mind about a topic here. And I'd love to have you back on more of these roundtable discussions if you're willing to do that.
Sure.
Oh, I'd love to.
Absolutely.
And we'll
Absolutely.
have some of
Fun.
our podcast listeners offer up some suggestions on what they'd like us to bring up as a topic.
So we could
that-
do this from our own home, you mean? And you'd be in your office? and Will's down in
Absolutely.
Florida and Carol in New York?
We
Wow.
certainly can.
That
Well, we
shows-
did some group things earlier in the year,
Right.
with the staff to
Right.
talk about stuff.
To talk about the convention, and we got people involved as well. So,
Yeah.
but I want to thank you very much for joining us.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
pleasure. A lot of fun. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Hypnosis NGH podcast. You're welcome to share your ideas for future podcasts by emailing us nghpodcast@ngh.net.
Save the dates. 2024 Solid Gold Weekend. Las Vegas, Nevada. February 24th and the 25th, 2024. Register today.